Good morning, and welcome to the Loyola Blakefield Alumni Association's annual presentation of the Reverend Joseph M. Kelley, S.J. Medal. I want to welcome and recognize members of the Board of Trustees, President Anthony Day, and members of the faculty, past recipients of the Kelley Medal, members of the class of 1970, who this year are celebrating their 45-year anniversary as Loyola Blakefield graduates. The Loyola Blakefield Alumni Association Board of Governors. And the next wave of alumni, the class of 2015.
Hey, hey.
Most importantly, I want to welcome and recognize the recipient of this year's Kelley Medal, Mr. Erich March. His family and friends. To the members of the senior class, we thank you for joining us and invite you to pay close attention to the words being shared this morning. When you came to Loyola, you were challenged with the academics and activities of being a Loyola Don. As you graduate and move forward in life, we challenge you to take the pride of being a Loyola Don, and none more important than that of being a man for others, into all aspects of what you do and what you become, your relationships with family and friends, your engagement in your communities, and how you can impact the lives of those you come into contact with. On this day, 380 years ago, two ships, the Ark and the Dove, sailed up the Chesapeake Bay to the Potomac River. These settlers, men and women who had made the journey across the Atlantic, were joined by a small group of Jesuits and became the first people to set upon what is now the great state of Maryland. In thanksgiving for a safe journey, Father Andrew White and 4 other Jesuit missionaries celebrated a Mass for the colonists, perhaps for the first time ever in this part of the world. The rich history of the Society of Jesus has touched many Marylanders and those around the world. Beyond the Jesuits' work in colleges, universities, and high schools, Ignatian spirituality has challenged men and women to be more attentive to God's presence in our everyday lives and more responsive to what God is calling us to do. Today we celebrate and recognize an alumnus who has met that challenge, embodied the Ignatian values of direct service to the poor and working for a just society, and has served his community with distinction. The Kelley Medal is the highest form of recognition awarded to a Loyola Blakefield alumnus. It recognizes an alumnus who is outstanding by reason of distinction gained in business, profession, or his outstanding participation in ecclesiastical or civic affairs. In addition, the alumnus is recognized for how his personal, family, and public life serves as a role model and example to the students and graduates of Loyola Blakefield. The Loyola Blakefield Alumni Association has selected Erich March, class of 1970, as the recipient of the 2015 Kelley Medal. Mr. March has a very Mr. March has a very impressive resume of civic involvement in Baltimore, including President of the East North Avenue Community Development Corporation, Pastoral Council member of the Church of St. Anne, part owner of the family-run March Funeral Homes, Board of Directors for Roberta's House Family Grief Center, and owner, along with his wife Michelle, of the Apples and Oranges Fresh Market. In each of these ventures, Mr. March has responded to God's calling. The family-run March Funeral Homes have served the city for decades, and during the AIDS crisis of the 1980s, were the only establishment in town willing to help families whose loved ones had died of the disease. In a letter to the Alumni Association, Mr. March's classmate, Ralph Moore, recounted a story of great compassion and courage. As a classmate of theirs was losing their battle with AIDS, Mr. March was by his side and shaved his friend's face several times in the final weeks of his life. Mr. Moore also shared that Erich and his family have always taken care of the needy, sharing good fortune with others quietly and showing kindnesses that many were not aware of. In 2013, he and his wife Michelle opened Apples and Oranges Fresh Market Grocery in a food desert in East Baltimore. Their investment in the community provides an alternative to a community that lacked a full-service supermarket with affordable and healthy food options. Most low-income neighborhoods are plagued with unhealthy establishments, posing dietary risks, especially for children, and lead to disease and poor health outcomes. Mr. March was quoted in the Baltimore Sun as saying, "The venture grew out of a determination to build up our community. You cannot do that without some basic ingredients, and access to healthy food is a place to start." Baltimore City Councilman and Loyola alum Carl Stokes shared with us, "Mr. March is a hard-working businessman who has spearheaded many philanthropic projects throughout our city and the surrounding counties. He serves with distinction of being one of the best entrepreneurs in my district because of his business savvy and effective community outreach." However, nothing can say more than the words of Father Peter Lyons, pastor at the Church of St. Anne. "When the workload grows heavy and the results are discouraging, Erich draws on his faith, and I think on the values he learned at Loyola, to continue the struggle. He is a role model for our faith community, a credit to Loyola, and a worthy candidate of the Father Kelley Award Medal." I would ask Mr. March to please join me at the podium as I present to the Loyola Blakefield community this year's recipient of the Reverend Joseph M. Kelley S.J. Medal. On behalf of the Loyola Blakefield Alumni Association, thank you for serving as a role model to all members of the community and living out the challenge of being a true man for others. Thank you.
I'd like to invite City Councilman Mr. Welch from the class of 1972 to join me at the podium. He has a message from his friends on the council. Mr. Welch.
Good morning. This is an amazing process, an amazing and wonderful occasion. And Erich, you were in the funeral business for years, and you've heard so many of these for other people. You were allowed to hear your own. Before I read this resolution, I'm going to make you an offer. We've been looking at apples and oranges in my district, and I've written a lot of urban agriculture bills. We're actually talking with other city agencies, and we want to prepare a place in our district for you to have apples and oranges in West Baltimore. So we'll be talking about it. We prepared a city council resolution. Now you have to understand that in all of government, we think this is a sophisticated organization. Well, I had my signature on this resolution. I wanted all of the Loyola alumni to sign this resolution. Well, in order to do that, we have to actually have a person from our IT department get involved because we only have one printer and one set of instructions, so that's being prepared with all of our signatures there. And it's unique that that happens. It only happens once in a blue moon. And when I read this resolution, you will be in the official history books of Baltimore City. The City Council of Baltimore resolution, we are hereby known to all that the City Council of Baltimore offers its sincerest congratulations to Erich March, class of 1970, in recognition of being the first African-American alumnus of Loyola Blakefield to receive the Reverend Joseph M. Kelley S.J. Medal. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 25th day of March 2013, signed by our City Council President Bernard C. Jack Young, me, Councilman William P. Welch, and all the members of the Baltimore City Council. Congratulations, Erich. God bless and keep you. You're not only a Loyola man, but you're a man for all of us. Thank you.
I want to say how much of an honor this is for me. And I would like to acknowledge President Day Board of Governors, alumni, and senior class. I really appreciate you being here today. I would like to thank Mr. Broom, who I understand put my name in nomination for this award. Thank you, Mr. Broom. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge my family who are present. Today with me is my daughter, Melissa Smith. My wife and my two other children couldn't be here today. I'd also like to acknowledge my brother and his wife, Victor, class of '74. I'd like to acknowledge Annette, my sister, and her husband. I'd like to acknowledge my favorite aunt, Shirley Hargrove, and her daughter, Laura. I'm very humbled by this recognition. And I understand that when this medal was created and instituted, it was in 1962. And in the 53-year history of this award, and it was noted in the proclamation that was sent out, that I am the first African-American recipient of this award. After 53 years. Really? 53 years? You know, being the first African American was something special. It was a thing. Back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and 90s. And then it kind of got a little rarer because we had all had different positions, that there wasn't really any firsts anymore. And then in 2008, we thought we had the pinnacle of first African-American when this country elected its first African-American president. But since then, it's been rare, and rightly so, but it's still a thing to be the first African-American anything. In 1956, the first African-American to attend Loyola High School was Ken Montague. And that was really a first thing, because it was just 2 years after the Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954 that the law of the land said that segregation of public schools was illegal. Now the story goes, when they decided to accept Ken Montague here, a delegation from the school administration had to go to see Miss Blake. Miss Blake gifted this land that the school currently sits on. But as a stipulation of her gift, she stipulated that no colored boy should ever attend Loyola High School. That's a fact. So Ken Montague, in my estimation, is a big thing to be the first. And I am truly humbled in the year 2015 to be a first. Because when you decided on me, you could have decided on somebody better, much sooner. And I'll just give you some of the people that I think are deserving of this honor as well. Not to diminish this honor in any way, but this has been a long time coming and should have come earlier. Ken Montague, the first one to go to this school, rose to the rank of a cabinet member in the Ehrlich administration. And that was a Republican administration. Y'all had to have liked him. You had Reggie Boyce, who was a star athlete here on the basketball team, on the football team, and he returned to Loyola High School as a coach and mentored and helped countless Loyola men to be men on the field and off the field. You have Carl Stokes and Pete Welch, city councilman for the city of Baltimore. You had Ralph Moore, who was the first black alumni to be hired as a faculty member here at Loyola. And has spent his whole life, his whole professional career, working for the poor and underprivileged. And I'm proud to call him friend. I say all these things, and there are many more I could cite who have been worthy to receive this award. But since you gave me that honor, and they've given me a couple minutes, I feel compelled to recount my experience as an African American at Loyola High School. Because see, it's something you don't know. Some of you know, like Mr. Broom might remember, Mr. Stewart might remember. See, I was almost a thing in my junior year at Loyola. I was almost the first African American. I came this close to being the first African American expelled from this prestigious preparatory school. And I'll tell you why. But first, I'm only going to take a minute. I have to give you the context of what it was like for us in 1966. There were 5 of us in the freshman class, 5 African Americans, which brought the total number of students, black students at this school to 10 out of a class or a school population of over 500. It was 10 of us. We had to take 3 buses to get here. We had to be on the corner of North Avenue and Charles Street by 6 o'clock to take another bus to catch the school bus to school. But on that public transportation, it was 3 of us, and the rest were black women. The bus was filled with black women and 3 Loyola High School students. And the women were going out to the county to clean houses. So that was our daily routine. Now, let me give you a breakdown of the student body. The white boys at Loyola fit into 3 categories. One was the privileged class. These were the wealthy families that sent their sons here. And they had little or no relations with black people other than those women that came out on the bus to clean their house and cook their food. Then you had the blue-collar white boys. And within the white community, there was a segregation going on too, because they either came from the Italian community, the Irish community, or the Polish community. And the privileged white boys didn't mess with them because they were tough. They were rough. Mr. Bruin liked to have them on football. That's no lie. But they didn't mess with black folks either, because our neighborhoods came up to each other, but you didn't cross the line unless you were looking for a fight. And then there was the third category of white students. And these were the guys that whose families lived in neighborhoods that transitioned from white to black. And for whatever reason, they didn't participate in the fright and flight exodus of white families that left the neighborhoods that were changing to move out to the suburbs, either because they couldn't afford to move or they felt the cost of their son's education came first and put them in a position of staying in neighborhoods that changed racially. And these turned out to be the cool white folks. You can find them every day, because they'd be over in the corner of the cafeteria hanging out with the black guys. That was the reality in those days. So, I'm only going to be a minute. In our sophomore year, on April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And we were here at Loyola. That was our sophomore year in April. And anybody who was present at that time was glued to the television set, looking at what was happening in Baltimore with the riots and the looting and the total chaos that was taking place during that time. And the reaction of the white boys here were, man, what's going on? What's happening? I didn't have an answer. None of us had an answer, except that the rage was real and that it expressed itself in that kind of behavior. But that was in April of '68. We only had 3 more weeks of school left. But that was a summer, the following summer was a time of transformation for us, black people and the black students that attended the school. There was this anthem in the air from Sir James Brown singing, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." So what happened? During that summer, we got a sense of self-esteem. We got a sense of pride. We came back to school. And our appearance had changed. Because now our hair was here. We came back to school with bushes, afros, and mustaches. And we were deemed in violation of Loyola's strict dress code. And at that time, there was a Father Schmidt. You would have to know Father Schmidt to love him. But he was the disciplinarian here at Loyola High School. And he came over to the corner of the cafeteria where most of the black kids hung out and said, "Gentlemen, you will cut your hair. You will not wear that here at Loyola. And you will remove that facial hair." Well, everybody complied, except me and Victor Thomas. We kept our hair. And so we were given the ultimatum. You either cut your hair, Mr. March, Mr. Thomas, or you will be expelled. Well, to be fair, Loyola was in good company because my father told me the same thing. My father told me if I didn't cut my hair, I was going to be thrown out of the house. Because see, back then, if you were black and over 50, you didn't want to be black. You were content to be Negro. And so there was this culture change between the young people and the older black people. So I was fighting on two fronts, the school and my home. Poor Frank Fisher talked to my father, said, Mr. March, he's a good kid. He'd be all right. But he might get expelled. Well, anyway, I'm gonna be finishing in a minute. Me and Vic Thomas, we went to our village elders. We went to Perrin Mitchell, Reverend Vernon Dobson, Judge John R. Hargrove Sr., Dr. Homer Faber. Now, if those names don't ring a bell with you, that's because you're from a different generation. But these were the elders of our community, and were well respected. And we asked them to advocate for us and help us in this situation at Loyola High School. While they couldn't come physically because we had asked for a disciplinary hearing, while they couldn't come physically, they wrote letters telling the administration what it meant to be African American at Loyola High School. And we came prepared to defend our position by bringing samples of the white boys' hair. And what we did is we laid the hair out on the table, and at that time the white boy's hair was about 3 to 4 inches long, and we put that on the table, and we took our hair, and our hair was 2 or 3 inches long. The only problem was ours stuck up. Theirs laid down. So our argument was that we weren't being disciplined for lack of values. We were being disciplined for our ethnicity. The fact that our hair stood up and white folks' hair laid down. But our hair was no longer the theirs. Well, the disciplinary council bought that argument and relented, and we continued our matriculation at Loyola High School. And they suspended the dress code. Now, our hair got here, and the white boy's hair got here. We were black, they were hippies. And the school population mirrored the country, as it well should. This is a great country. I love this country. I will defend this country. On paper, this country is heaven. By its declaration of all of us are created equal, endowed with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to enforce that dream. So we mirrored that country here. But everything is cyclical. Here today, right now, the news media, the newspapers, conversation is dominated by issues of race. You would think that we have gotten beyond that. You would think that we are in a more enlightened era. But let me say this. It was a Jesuit student who was caught on that video, on that bus, singing that racist song by that fraternity. He was the product of a Jesuit education today. And no doubt there's somebody on this campus that is capable of mimicking that same behavior. Why? Why? You can learn a lot by reading the comic strips. There's a comic strip called BC, probably know it. The environment is prehistoric. And a couple months ago, there was this cartoon in BC where one caveman is saying to another, how come mankind keeps making the same mistakes? And the other caveman answered, because with every new generation, it's a new mankind. A new mankind. But the same demons that they have to contend with. Hatred, prejudice, racism. And the reason that each generation has to grapple with those issues is because we have failed as the previous generation to mentor them, to give them insight. Racism is not something you're born with, it's learned. And for some reason, we're not teaching the values that we should be. And I, for one, am ready to assume my role as a village elder. Because it's the elders that are responsible for transmitting the values that make us a great country and the values that make Loyola a great school. In 2004, well, let me back up. I'll just get in. I graduated here in 70. How many from the class of 70? Would you raise your hands? Thank you, my brothers. Thank you for being here. I sent my son here to Loyola. He's class of 96. My brother, he's class of 74. I will say this, when I was graduating out of here, my bush was this big, and when my brother came in as a freshman, his bush was this big. He sent his son here So that's 4 men from my family that came to Loyola. We had legacy. But when my sister's son applied here in 2004, a solid B student, he was denied admission to this school. That broke my heart, my brother's heart. And we couldn't understand why. I later found out why. Just like cyclical things go around and around, the school's culture had changed. They weren't interested in diversity anymore. The school had become exclusive with a country club-like atmosphere, and there wasn't any real need to make sure that the student body was diverse. And of course, his brother followed him to Calvert Hall. They went to Calvert Hall. Good schools, good school. But do you know what it did to us? On Turkey Day, we became schizophrenic. What side of the stadium are we gonna sit on? I fought Loyola for that. And to be honest, I intentionally withdrew from my affiliation with Loyola. But I came back. I came back because of Frank Fisher. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know Frank Fisher, you need to know Frank Fisher. Frank Fisher was our mentor, our advocate here at Loyola when there was only 10 black students. And I can name some others: Father Martinez, Father Bill Waters, Father Lucian Longton, Brother Paul Carthorne. These guys were the guys that went to bat for us and insisted that this school be more diverse and include black students. I'm proud to say that the Black Alumni organized this year and started a scholarship fund in Frank Fisher's honor, the Frank Fisher Diversity Fund. And in this first year, we raised $70,000 to be used to ensure that African Americans who lack the funds and finances can attend this prestigious school. This is a great school, and everybody should have equal access to the quality education that I received, that my brother received, that our sons received. They're entitled to it. They should have it. Now, I've paid my pledge, but I'm going to write another check today. And I'm going to make it out to Loyola High School. And on the memo line, I'm going to write, in honor of me, the first African American recipient of the Kelley Award. And I'm going to ask you to do the same. I know y'all didn't expect this to be a fundraiser, but look, you got the breakfast free. I don't care if it's $10. We accept cash, checks, credit cards, jewelry. So make a commitment to this school to be the best school it can possibly be. And it can only be the best school it can possibly be when all of this school reflects what this world has to offer. The best and the brightest, regardless of race, color, or creed. And I will promise you today, as an elder of the village, that I will spend my time and energy to make that happen. Thank you very much.